What's up guys, JP back at you once again, bringing you guys day number 8 in my 4th annual 31 Days of Horror. This is a series where we watch and review 31 horror films in 31 days, all during the month of October, leading right up to Halloween. This year we are focusing on the Universal Classic Monsters films, and moving along with that chronologically, we have day number 8, which is the second sequel in the Frankenstein series from 1939. This is the last film of the 30s. We have Son of Frankenstein. Son of Frankenstein picks up sometime after Bride of Frankenstein, where we have Dr. Frankenstein's son, who decides to move to the town in which his father inhabited and created the monster. So we have Frankenstein's son named Wolf Frankenstein, his wife Elsa, and then their son Peter. Upon entering the town, he is very unwelcome because the town is plagued by the history of the monster and still sort of fear that happening again. They move into his father's old home, in which he gets a briefcase full of notes from the local town policeman. In that briefcase, he finds out what his father's experiments were and begins to sort of continue his father's work, but he doesn't fully continue his father's work until he meets Igor. Igor is one of his father's assistants who we never was introduced to in the previous film. I don't think it's supposed to be Fritz, which was Frankenstein's original assistant in Frankenstein. I think it's different. I don't know, they don't really explain it. Igor shows young Wolf Frankenstein that the monster is still alive in the dungeon of the laboratory, but he is now in a coma. So Mr. Wolf Frankenstein decides to continue his father's work and try to resurrect and break out the monster from the coma. But Igor has his own plans and use for the monster because he has a relationship with the monster, and the monster actually listens to Igor. Meanwhile, you have the police trying to figure out if the monster is alive and pin Wolf Frankenstein to potential murders that happened in the town very recently. Wow, man, this one is really good. This is probably my favorite Frankenstein film. I think that it is super solid. It's a very big film. It feels like there's a lot going on, very complex storyline, and Igor, that character is really interesting. He's very creepy. He has his bones sticking out of his neck because they hung him in the town and he lived. He died, was pronounced dead, and then came back to life. It's just creepy. I like the dynamic with the townspeople who are kind of plagued by the presence of the monster, and they're not really sure if he's dead. The town obviously has went through a lot in the previous two films. I love the landscape of the castle in this one. It almost has a very German expressionism feel to it. Some of the doorways are, oddly designed and stuff. I like that there's these secret passages and everything, and this Igor character is just this hunchbacked, gross little monster who knows where all this stuff is, and it's a good movie. It really is. Like, I love the progression of the story. There's a little kid in this film, and he was actually kind of cute. He messed up some of his lines sometimes, but it felt very natural. There's a slight bit of comedy in this one too, but I don't think that it's overdone. I do feel like this one kind of wraps up quickly though. It's a longer one. It's one of the longer ones that we've seen so far. I believe it is the longest one. I believe it's almost like an hour and 40 minutes, and there's this long progress of character building and development, and then it kind of just wraps up at the end, and I was a little bummed out at that. They introduced things that, of course, were not in the previous film, and that could be a little weird to get used to because you're like, oh, so now they have a giant sulfur pit? How come that wasn't explained? But just suspend your disbelief and everything will be fine. Son of Frankenstein is really good. I very much enjoyed it. It is sort of your perfect Universal monster film. It has a little bit of everything, and I just really enjoyed it. I give it about an 8.5 out of 10.